Welcome back to the best anime recap. Today, get ready to be amazed with an incredible full-series masterpiece. A hero carrying the team with unbeatable power. A superhero leading the team with overwhelming reincarnation power, single-handedly taking on the world. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel to support us and receive notifications for the latest videos from the best anime recap from ancient times, when the universe was still shrouded in mystery. The gods created terrifying creatures called Typho. These evil monsters were destined to devour the world. Humankind, despite their best efforts, could only wield primitive weapons, which barely left a scratch on these ferocious beings. But when a ruthless force suddenly emerged, threatening to alter the world's balance, a glimmer of hope shone through individuals with extraordinary power. This brave man was one of them. Without hesitation, he leaped from above, while commanding his comrade to switch to battle mode. Immediately at that moment, the girl above, with an ethereal beauty, suddenly transformed into the form of a goddess, quickly aiding her brother by helping him descend and creating an icy barrier around them, blocking all threats in that instant. The monster mercilessly hurled stones at him, but with a decisive sword swing, he unleashed a freezing slash through the air, freezing even the giant boulders and the charging monster itself. The beast struggled to break free from the ice, but as it lunged forward, he swiftly leaped into the air and delivered a sharp slash to its head, putting an immediate end to its rampage. The main story of the movie begins in a majestic fortress where a girl is being held captive, taking advantage of the guards' inattention. She boldly breaks open the cell door to escape. The fortress immediately calls for reinforcements, as she is their peculiar experiment subject. Driven to the edge, the girl has no other choice but to leap from the rooftop into the deep sea. Wasting no time, she swims toward a boat, where she encounters the protagonist, Zero, the boat's owner, known for his habit of only drinking. She politely asks for permission and then rushes into the town. Soon, the guards arrive and ask Zero if he has seen a girl dressed in black pass by. But since he simply walked into town, the soldiers immediately report to their commander. Meanwhile, as the girl runs through the streets, she accidentally bumps into an old woman, ruining the delicate bouquets she was carrying. She tries to make amends by offering a pile of gold, but the old woman only accepts 1 coin, seeing that the girl looks hungry and lost. The woman introduces herself as Yumi and gently asks her name. Noticing her hesitation, Yumi leads her home. By the time the guards pass by, they are too late, as the girl is already hidden by Yumi. The guards immediately report to Commander Mizami that the experiment subject has escaped again. Mizami, with a cold and determined face, orders the use of any means, including the most brutal methods, to capture her. Right after, he takes a blue-colored drug to keep himself alert for work, though signs of sleep deprivation and mental strain are evident on his face. Meanwhile, Yumi kindly gives the girl a new outfit. After thanking her, the girl departs in the morning. As news of the experiment subject spreads, she happens to pass by a street vendor girl, who suddenly recognizes that Viviro was once a skilled monster hunter. She immediately asks if there's any way to earn money here. Then, the girl guides her to the town's monster hunt, where this afternoon, rewards will be given based on the number of participants. But if someone dies, the hunting guild won't be responsible. The young girl also notices that Zero seems to have lost the true spirit of a hunter, and then put the goods on display for sale. Unfortunately, when the pink-haired girl passed by, the street vendor girl took the opportunity to introduce her products. She explained that this city survives by hunting monsters and other giant creatures, because even though monsters harm the town and its people, their meat and fat are utilized to the fullest extent, creating the profession of monster hunting. At that moment, the pink-haired girl was captivated by the sparkling ring on the cat's paw. She heard that it was an engagement ring, a rumored item that was said to be the key to saving the world from monsters. However, to activate its power, the wearer must make a vow with an AI, and once the vow is fulfilled, the person's life force would be drained, turning the ring into a cursed. Unfortunately, the pink-haired girl accidentally wore the ring, causing the street vendor girl to insist that she buy it immediately. Meanwhile, it was time for Zero to go hunting. Despite having a rather dull nickname, making people think he was just an ordinary person, he was determined to prove his worth. Fate led his soul to the heart of the Empire, where warrior Lady Sue Rosie, during her audience with the council and the king, requested to divide the army to protect the people from the monster waves. However, the council refused, as they only wanted to concentrate their forces around the imperial center to efficiently defend other areas. Back to the hunters' hunt. This time, they faced a giant monster, resembling a wild boar. It had 2 long drills used for digging, breaking rocks, and stealing minerals inside. The hunters then began luring the monster toward the city wall, causing the entire town to receive an emergency alert that the monster was approaching. 3 hunters were assigned to lure the monster closer to the wall. They completed the task, but unfortunately, one was rammed by the monster into the wall. Seeing the dire situation, Zero, standing on the city wall, leaped down, throwing his spear to block the monster's drill, and quickly ran to rescue the fallen hunter. After saving his teammate, the hunters immediately fired explosive arrows, aiming to destroy the monster. Finally, the vicious monster was eliminated. At the same time, Mizami was surprised by Zero's brave actions. That night, the town held a grand feast to celebrate the victory after the intense monster hunt. The person Zero saved cheered loudly, proudly honoring him with the title Lightning. That night, Mizami unexpectedly appeared before Zero. When asked what the Imperial commander wanted from him, Mizami gently revealed that he was once a mighty warrior, one who carried the power to fight monsters. However, Zero insisted that Mizami was mistaken, then silently walked away. Meanwhile, on their way home, the pink-haired girl and the street vendor wandered together. The street vendor girl decided to let the pink-haired girl stay at her house for a while. Suddenly, a strong wind blew the pink-haired girl's hat away, causing the soldiers to spot and chase her. Soon, she was expelled to the harbor and was unexpectedly struck by a guard's arrow. At that moment, the guards spotted a monster approaching the town. As the soldiers noticed the pink-haired girl, she began to emit a thick black aura. This aura then turned 2 archers into piles of ash. Suddenly, the sword that Zero kept at home also began to move abnormally. He rushed outside to check and discovered that pink-haired girl is glowing brightly. That image reminds him of his old partner, and he realizes that phenomenon is actually a sign of a curse slowly being activated. Meanwhile, the monster continues to ravage the town. Yet the soldiers still prioritize capturing the pink-haired girl. Zero quickly rushes in, slashing away the arrows flying toward her. Then he decisively pulls her into the deep sea. He summons his weapon with his hand and gently kisses her forehead. "Are you an AI?" he asks. She replies that she is experiment number 22. But not long after, she takes the name Yumi to define herself. Zero has countless questions for her. But first, he emphasizes that they must stop. The monster does not hesitate. Zero and Yumi shift into battle mode, combining their strength to face the threat. We gradually learn more about the past story. The gods created the land, but humans plundered its wealth. So the gods summoned beasts to punish humanity. In response, humans summoned divine power to fight the beasts. Zero bursts out of the water, his hair glowing like the rays of dawn. Meanwhile, his sword transforms into a sharp spear. Yumi, bewildered by her first combat experience, asks him what she should do while he fights. He simply smiles, saying that all she needs to do is stay silent. Immediately after, Zero launches a powerful attack, striking down the monster. During the fierce battle, he realizes the monster is too tough to pierce through. In a moment of crisis, the monster grabs him. But suddenly, something catches the monster's attention, causing it to throw him aside. Yumi anxiously asks, "Are you okay?" Zero only chuckles, saying he just had a bit too much to drink last night. Without hesitation, Zero charges in and slices off the monster's arm, yet it still shows no sign of stopping. At this moment, Yumi realizes that the eye in the center of the monster's head is its only weak point. He decides to follow her idea. He climbs onto the monster's arm and drives his weapon into its eye. Then, he thrusts his spear through the monster's body until it ceases to move and collapses. Zero also exits his battle state, falling beside the monster's corpse. Yumi, confused, doesn't know what happened to Zero. He is approached by a street vendor girl. She introduces herself as Mia. She promises to take Zero to a place that treats special patients like him. The next morning, Megami arrives at the scene. After taking a deep whiff of the ashes, he realizes that Yumi has successfully released a mysterious gas. This gas turns humans into ashes upon contact. Meanwhile, it stimulates and attracts monsters. Shortly after, Megami is also informed that a warrior accompanied Yumi and defeated the town's monster. Knowing that, this warrior must be injured after the battle, Megami orders the soldiers to search the town, while the townspeople diligently repair the walls. Yumi and Mia casually go shopping. Yumi becomes obsessed with a delicious pastry and rushes to buy it. Mia advises her not to draw too much attention, since she is still a wanted fugitive. Mia hopes Yumi returns soon, as it seems Zero is about to wake up. Outside, the people not only work hard to repair the walls, but also begin the ritual to dispose of the monster's corpse. At that moment, Zero suddenly remembers an event from 5 years ago, when he, his partner, and their squad fought countless monsters. Due to the curse that Yumi used last night, his partner lost her life. Even though his comrades urged him to leave his fallen partner behind and flee, he firmly refused. Then, Zero suddenly wakes up upon hearing Mia say that he kissed Yumi's forehead, a gesture believed to be a proposal. But he immediately rushes outside, declaring that he is not a lolicon. So he had no intention of getting married. He only saw it as a contractual ritual. He also revealed that Yumi was known as the one who possessed the power of the gods. A tremendous power. If left uncontrolled, it would release an aura that attracts monsters, while also destroying everything around. That was the reason warriors like him were born, to become vessels that suppress divine power. Finally, Zero asked why Kiyumi was being pursued by soldiers, but she couldn't reveal it. Zero originally had no desire to get involved in the warrior's path again. He advised Kiyumi to find another warrior and simply walked away. At the same time, he warned Kiyumi not to stay in town for too long. But as evening approached, Mia devised a clever plan. She believed that Zero would soon return to retrieve the weapon he had forgotten, and that they had to drag Zero along, since finding a warrior like him was no easy feat in this world. Kiyumi couldn't hide her admiration for Zero either, as he carried a soothing fragrance, as warm as the first rays of sunlight on a winter morning. That evening, Mia led Kiyumi to the town's tavern for a meal together, where Kiyumi unexpectedly reunited with her familiar aunt. Before they could enjoy dinner, soldiers suddenly stormed into the tavern, following a rumor that their experimental subject was present. The soldiers' arrival threw the tavern into chaos. Yumi tried to hide under a table, but she was soon discovered. Her aunt immediately stepped in to shield her, but Yumi, afraid of endangering her aunt, ran outside. Suddenly, a dark aura erupted from her body, turning a soldier who touched it into a pile of ashes. Mia swiftly knocked her out before Yumi could cause even greater destruction. In the end, Mia and Kiyumi accepted being captured. Mizami soon received news that Kiyumi had been taken back, along with reports of only one soldier's death. So Mizami faked the soldier's death to prevent his family from making a fuss. Meanwhile, Zero was cleaning his ship when he suddenly realized his weapon was missing. Mia and Kiyumi, imprisoned in a cell, also saw the weapon floating in the air and realized that Zero was looking for it, not knowing its location. Zero searched Mia's house. Finding no clues, he wandered through the town, unexpectedly encountering Kiyumi's aunt, who informed him that both girls had been captured and gifted him rare fruits that restored a warrior's strength. Zero accepted the gifts and quickly left. That night, Zero sneaked around the army's ship to confirm that the girls were indeed being held there. Without hesitation, he took down a guard and rushed to find them. Soon, Zero found and freed them. Then, he retrieved his weapon and initially walked away. The two girls thought Zero had abandoned them, but then he quickly called out, telling them to run after him. At that moment, the soldiers discovered them and surrounded Zero. Along with the two girls, Mizami was also surprised by Zero's agility and immediately ordered them to hold onto the weapon. Then he leaped straight into the sea, letting his spear fly, pulling both girls back to his ship. He asked Mia to start and steer the ship, while he and Kiyumi worked together to shake off the soldiers. They charged straight toward the army's ship and delivered a piercing strike, causing the enemy vessel to sink after the battle. Zero realized that he had no choice left but to stick with Mia and Kiyumi, as all three of them were now officially fugitives, wanted by the military. After making repairs to the ship, Zero quickly decided to set off for the town the following morning. When the military's ship had been repaired, Mizami met with the two captains and ordered them to return with him, believing that the research and pursuit of Kiyumi could be temporarily halted. Meanwhile, Zero's group was still on their way to the new town. Zero asked Mia if they were following the trail, and she confirmed that they were, as he had said, because if they took the main road, they would surely be caught. It was also Kiyumi's first time experiencing rainfall. Suddenly, Mia stopped, which prompted Zero to step out and check on the group, only to discover a massive ravine. Mia explained that this place frequently experienced heavy rainfall, causing the valleys to flourish. But the excessive accumulation of rainwater had created the ravine, allowing water to flow down below. Since their ship could not cross the ravine, They had no choice but to wait for a few days until the rain stopped and the ravine naturally closed up. However, Zero reminded Mia and Kiyumi that they didn't have enough provisions to wait for several days like that, so they needed to find another solution. Suddenly, Mia stopped and declared that she had a plan. She steered the ship and led the group to the Beast Tribe's village, which Zero was familiar with. When Zero worried about whether the villagers would welcome them, Mia reassured him not to worry. Mia then approached a frightening-looking man and suddenly let out a cry similar to a cat's meow. Suddenly, another person appeared from behind the man, who looked exactly like Mia but had a dog on their head. These two had never met before, but eventually Mia requested to stay there temporarily and received permission to do so. The village children then ran out to play joyfully with Kiyumi and Zero, but because Zero shouted loudly, Kiyumi had to lead them elsewhere to play. While playing, Kiyumi was pulled into a jump rope game by the children, but feeling a bit unfamiliar, she fell. After that, Kiyumi noticed one child among them, who seemed to distance themselves from the others. Before long, Zero encountered the two military captains again, one fat and one thin, when they unexpectedly discovered a giant whale monster in the sea. Based on the information they had, sea monsters tended to attack humans more brutally than land monsters. This made them wonder what the difference between the two was. In the end, they concluded that it seemed Megami no longer wanted to pursue Kiyumi. The fat captain said that if it were him, he wouldn't dare to face Zero either. However, had Mizami truly given up on Kiyumi? No one knew for sure. Meanwhile, Zero curiously asked Mia about the girl with the dog on her head. Mia just smiled mysteriously and replied that it was a secret. Mia also returned to the group for dinner. After the meal, Zero wondered why he wasn't allowed to hunt there, or if there was something preventing him. Not long after, a hunter named Dairo came to see him and said that if Zero wanted to hunt in this area, he should give up because the beasts here were far more dangerous than elsewhere. Right after that, a young man arrived, asking Dairo to take him as a disciple. However, Dairo refused, causing the young man to beg to learn swordsmanship. Dairo promised to teach him after completing his current mission, then left. At the same time, Kiyumi asked Zero about Dairo's strength. Zero replied that yes, Dairo was indeed very strong. Hearing that, Kiyumi immediately ran off for a while Mia seemed annoyed with Zero. Not long after, Kiyumi accidentally encountered the girl who always hid herself. She was trying to catch fireflies on a tree branch, when she suddenly slipped and fell. A quick young boy managed to follow her in time to catch her. And at that moment, Dio suddenly appeared and caught the girl, but her hand was scratched. Yumi immediately bandaged her wound. After that, the girl thanked them and ran off. The boy introduced himself as Mer, and the girl was called Deli, even though they weren't biological siblings. According to Megan, in the Beast Tribe, blood ties weren't as important as living together. That was what created a family. Megan also shared his wish to become a warrior of the gods, to protect the village from monsters. And he decided to take Daizo as his role model because of his extraordinary strength. Meanwhile, Milena asked Zero if he truly had no intention of fighting again, because recently the monsters had been growing unnaturally stronger. No one could deny it, but he still didn't want to hunt here, afraid the villagers would make a fuss if a warrior of the gods like him appeared. Milena could only silently listen to Zero's explanation. Perhaps because before, Daizo had also once tested his strength. The next day, Dazo and his hunting party were battling several elephant-like monsters. Dial cleverly blocked one elephant and knocked it down, creating an opportunity for the hunters to shoot arrows. However, suddenly, they encountered another elephant with glowing red eyes. Megan hurried back to the village to find Dolly, but she was nowhere to be seen. Worried that Dolly had left the village to play, he quickly set out to search for her. News about the red-eyed monster spread throughout Zero's village, and Kiyumi rushed to deliver the news. Zero hurriedly went to check the situation and saw Daryl returning with the hunting group, injured. Soon after, Kiyumi informed the village chief that Dealey was missing, and the whole village worried about where Dolly could be. Suddenly, Desley appeared, carrying Malong's sword, bringing it as a gift for Yumi. Noticing that Yumi seemed very sad. However, Kiwi refused to accept the sword, and the village chief advised her to return it to Malon. The village chief also mentioned that Dealey was a rare girl in the village, because she had the ability to read minds. Datril suddenly realized that Melon was missing, and Kiyumi informed them that Melon had gone into the forest searching for Dealey, so the village had no choice but to gather for a search. Meanwhile, Melon was being chased by the red-eyed elephant, and realized he was no longer carrying his sword. Zero had no choice but to act. He ordered Mia to prepare the boat, so they could escape as soon as possible. At the same time, he instructed to avoid fighting the red-eyed elephant by rescuing Melon first, then fleeing immediately. Just then, Melon tripped, falling right in front of the red-eyed elephant, forcing Zero to rush in and save him, telling Melon to retreat behind him. However, the elephant started to unleash its tentacles to attack, and Zero didn't want to waste more time, so he had no choice but to team up with Kumi to fight. He quickly dodged every tentacle attack, then lunged forward and stabbed the elephant in the eye, activating the weapon's enlargement ability, instantly killing it. Zero's actions as a warrior of the gods were witnessed by Melarone, so Zero ordered Meladon to return to the village and forbade him from revealing anything about this before he left. After that, Daedal's group and the villagers rushed over. No one knew exactly who had taken down the red-eyed beast, but Daiku realized the situation and told Melon to go give thanks. Melon quickly listened and left. Zero's group then suddenly remembered that the rift had not yet closed. Melon ran over and said he wanted to repay Zero for saving his life, promising to protect his secret at all costs. After that, the group returned to the village, and Zero accepted the children following him without pushing them away. Meanwhile, the female warrior, Sue Rosie of the Empire, continuously received reports that red-eyed monsters keep appearing constantly, which made her worried about what was happening. A few days later, Zero's group stayed in the Beastman's village. Zero spent all day gambling with the villagers. Meanwhile, Kiyumi just kept eating non-stop. This made Mia extremely angry, because both of them were freeloading while she had to pay for everything. Yumi decided that she had to do something to repay Mia. But right after that, Studio rushed in and decided to treat both girls to a nice meal, ending a chaotic day full of emotions, challenges, and laughter for the adventurers. Mia asked where he got the money. Zero smiled and replied that it was his own fund. For the past few days, Zero had almost only been playing rigged gambling, but he insisted that this method caused no harm, so it was still acceptable. Right after that, a rabbit tribe girl suddenly stepped into the restaurant. Although those around her seemed unfriendly towards her, Yumi ran up like a dedicated staff member. Handing her a towel, gently drying her wet hair, she asked, "What's inside this suitcase?" The girl replied that it was filled with nothing but herbs and introduced herself as Rona, a doctor who travels around treating people. After that, She asked Yumi if she was here alone. And before long, Ronald realized that Zero and Mia were sitting over there. Without hesitation, Ronald approached and invited Zero for a few gambling rounds. Zero decided to join, but before long, Ronald had completely cleaned him out. However, with the nature of a gambler, Zero still wanted to win back his losses, so he used his last coin to continue playing. Rona refused. She didn't want to gamble with someone who only had one coin left. Instead, she demanded that if Zero lost, he had to give Yumi to her. But Zero refused to back down. He called upon his weapon, ready to wager it instead. The conflict was unexpectedly resolved when Rona accused Zero of being a human trafficker and wanted to rescue Yumi from him. Meanwhile, Zero argued that the real issue stemmed from Yumi. Mia immediately suggested that the true cause was actually Zero, since his face looked just like a fresh trafficker's. At this moment, Zero requested to get his weapon back from Rona, but she never promised to return it, as in her opinion, if Zero lost the bet, he had to face the consequences. She also advised that a reckless person like him should just give up being a hunter. Before the situation could cool down, someone ran in with news that the rain was getting heavier and the village was about to flood. The village chief said there was a way to solve the problem, but it required Zero's help. There was a safe place ahead for evacuation, and he wanted Zero to help transport the villagers' belongings there. Mia agreed immediately, but Zero questioned, if the village is going to flood in a day, why not try using sandbags to block the water? The chief insisted that method was too risky, and he prioritized the villagers' lives. With no other choice, Zero decided to help the entire village. He used his ship to tow the villagers' belongings to the shelter. Meanwhile, Megan and Dizo stayed behind to ensure no one was left behind. But right after that, they accidentally discovered a huge wave approaching. It wasn't caused by nature, but by a giant fish monster. The beast struck and capsized the Digel ship. It even broke Zero's sword. Then it burrowed into the ground and disappeared. Daiko was immediately brought to Rona for first aid. Zero asked Megan about the monster. Megan said it resembled a fish that usually hid in the mud and wasn't a red-eyed type, so Zero had to reconsider his approach. Ronald tossed Zero a weapon, reminding him that it was just a loan, not a gift. At the same time, Digo suggested that Megan should go with Zero, since he had seen the monster before and also had night vision abilities, which would definitely help Zero. Zero reluctantly agreed to let Megan join, as long as he followed Zero's instructions. Mia had already set off after them, so Kiyumi also wanted to go along, but Rona needed Kiyumi to stay and assist. Zero reassured Enko not to worry. As long as they didn't face the red-eyed monster, he could still handle things on his own. The group then sailed to the flooded area. To track down the monster, they spotted a whirlpool. Suspecting that the monster was underneath, Zero tied a chain to his weapon and threw it down. Right at that moment, the ship was suddenly pulled, as if the fish had taken the bait. Digel then asked more about Kiyumi's background, and she revealed that she was an orphan until she met Zero. Digel commented that she was quite similar to Melon, however. Megan was too gentle to be a true hunter, so Digel believed that Megan needed to learn more about the outside world before becoming a warrior, and he believed that Zero was the teacher that AI should also follow. At this moment, Zero pulled the fish along, not wanting to kill it, but only to release it back into the river, because this water monster only attacked humans when provoked, perhaps due to the flood. But right after, the monster suddenly awakened, entered its red-eyed state, and broke the chain, causing the entire ship to halt. Zero started struggling against the monster. Meanwhile, Ronald asked Kiyomi if she knew anything about the warriors of the gods, those who wield divine power. Since Zero had told her about them, Ronald explained that the warriors of the gods appeared to protect those who possessed such power. But throughout her journey healing on the battlefield, she had only seen warriors exploiting others' power. However, Kiyomi believed that Zero was not like what Ronald described, though she felt she had misspoken. Regardless, Ronald remained confident that Zero was indeed a warrior of the gods, and Daikel surely realized it too. Ronald was about to give Kiyomi some advice, when suddenly Nero cried out in pain and pretended that he had been poisoned by the fish. He asked Kiyomi to find Mia for the antidote. Kiyomi believed him and rushed off. In reality, Zero did this to ease Kiyomi's worries about Zero, and to assure Ronald that Zero was trustworthy, so she didn't need to be too wary. Zero was now completely powerless against the monster. Its body had hardened to the point of being impenetrable unless it was weakened by Yumi's power. The giant fish started growing long tentacles to absorb the surrounding water, causing its body to swell. Then it fired water bullets at Zero, forcing him to defend himself. In the chaos, Yumi arrived just in time to get the medicine for Digo, but Mia reported that there was no antidote left at the moment. Sensing Kiyomi's presence, Zero immediately called her into battle. He quickly realized that he could take advantage of the protruding rock above the fish to turn the situation around without hesitation. Zero rushed forward and attacked the rock, causing it to fall and crush the fish. When the fish became motionless, Zero calmly finished his familiar task by delivering a precise cut to its eye, ending the monster's life. The next morning, the entire village gathered to thank Zero's group for saving everyone. Ronald now decided to travel with Zero and have him as her bodyguard as a way to repay him. However, as they set off, Zero still wondered why Samikin was here. That boy had originally been entrusted to Zero by Deco for training, and from now on, the two would travel together. Zero then retrieved his spear tip from Torona. Rona realized that Zero never actually intended to give her the spear tip, so she decided to consider it a debt to him and made him work to gradually pay it off. In the meantime, we meet the two captains again, who had been transferred to the research area to serve as their protectors. They had some time to talk. The skinny one lamented about being so busy and tormented that he couldn't visit his newlywed wife, while the chubby one told him that since his salary hadn't changed, his wife didn't complain. The skinny one, with his modest salary, began considering changing jobs. The chubby one introduced him to the idea of joining the guard unit of Megami, but warned that it only brings joy in the first year. After that, participants are forced to take drugs to the point of insanity, and after another half year, they turn into machines. A figurative way of saying that they lose their emotions and memories. The skinny one then wondered what exactly the Empire was researching in this area, but the chubby one didn't know either, since the ranks weren't high enough to access such classified information. Back to Zero and Rona's group, they now fully understood why the Empire was pursuing them. Ronald realized that Zero had yet to completely master controlling Kiyomi's power and considered him somewhat incompetent. Despite being in the cockpit, Zero overheard that remark and subtly reminded Donna of something. Then Yona noticed Kiyomi's ring and realized it was an item crafted by the wild folk. The wild folk, a tribe living in the crystal forest with long lifespans who often pass down precious jewelry through generations. Me suggested that the group visit the wild folk to see what the ring's purpose was, though the journey that was long and could take half a month. The group wondered whether the captain, Zero, wanted to go or not, since he himself didn't know what to do. He decided to continue his job of babysitting and traveling with the group. Not long after, Zero suddenly stopped the ship because someone was blocking the road ahead. When he went outside to check, Meizong was shocked to recognize it was Jen, a man who often visited the village and trained him. The group introduced themselves to Jen, and he asked where they were headed. When he learned they would pass through the mountain tribe's territory, Jen warned that this tribe was not very friendly to outsiders. However, since he had connections with them, he promised to write a letter of introduction to help them pass safely. Ren then received news from Milan about the events in the village and understood why Milan was traveling with them. Zero and the others only then learned that Milan joined, partly to repay a debt for Zero saving the village. Ren finished the letter and gave it to them, while reminding Milan to learn from Zero as much as possible before returning. Zero then informed Mia and the group that he would have trouble if the mountain tribe saw his face, so when they arrived, he would stay in the ship. This was due to past conflicts between him and the tribe, but if no one minded, then it was fine. However, when they arrived at the mountain tribe's village, Rona and Mia stepped out to greet them. There, they met another Mia, a woman wearing a lion hat. Mia talked for a while, received Ren's letter, and passed it to the mountain tribe's chief. When the chief read the letter and saw Zero's name, the entire tribe began calling for Zero to show himself. Zero didn't understand why Ren went through such unnecessary trouble. He knew he had been exposed, so he had no choice but to step forward and greet Chief Babin, who then decided to grant him amnesty, because Ren had spoken in his favor. Meanwhile, Su Ross met with a noble to ask him to persuade the council to divide the army and send troops to exterminate monsters across the empire. But this nobleman, just like the whole council, believes that splitting up the army to help unfamiliar tribes is unnecessary. He used some clever words to provoke Su Ross, forcing her to return. However, when Su Ross returned, she also realized that he must have prepared something beforehand. He was a cunning man. He wouldn't provoke AI without having a countermeasure in place. Clearly, she realized that in this situation, the only option was to rely on Zhen for a solution. Meanwhile, Zero was forced to participate in a wrestling match with the mountain tribe. His first opponent was a large, powerful man, full of strength, who quickly pushed Zero to the edge of the ring. But with unwavering determination, Zero held his ground and eventually threw his opponent out of the ring. But the match wasn't over with just one opponent. Right after that, a second opponent appeared. Kiyomi watched from the side, unable to hide her admiration for Zero's incredible strength. She also curiously asked about Bobbin's nickname. Rosanna explained that, according to the mountain tribe's custom, they usually give their children unattractive names, believing that if the name is too beautiful, the god of death will take notice and take the child away. From an early age, Main Fan also longed to grow up, so he could discard his hastily given nickname. At this moment, Zero had already defeated his second opponent, but soon after, many other opponents rushed into the fight, surrounding him. In a crowd, luckily, Baban ordered everyone to stand down, declaring that he would be Zero's main opponent. Baban quickly launched a devastating attack, but Zero continuously dodged and then landed a punch in return. However, Zero's attack seemed to have no effect at all. Baban immediately grabbed his hand, lifted Zero up, and slammed him hard onto the floor, leaving him motionless. Baban claimed victory and acknowledged Zero as a strong warrior, while also calling on everyone to cheer and honor him. After that, Baban invited Zero's group to a feast. During the meal, Victo asked Baban if he held any grudge against Zero, because in the past Zero had killed many members of the mountain tribe. Baben calmly replied that his tribe consisted only of warriors who were ready to kill or be killed, so the concept of hatred didn't exist. He only cared about the strength of his opponent. Since Zero had proven his strength, he deserved Bobbin's respect. Baben then joked that Zero was quite popular among the mountain tribe's women. At first, he joked that the two girls beside him were just children, but he immediately corrected himself, saying that mountain tribe women were naturally small and required men to protect them. He even teased that if Zero fancied someone, he would gladly arrange a marriage, unless he already had his other half. He then glanced over at Zero's group and asked each of them, including Melon and Bass, who believed that as long as two people love each other, they will stay together. However, he also reminded Zero that if he wanted to, he should leave behind a child for the mountain tribe. He would take care of the child and raise them to be a warrior. Suddenly, an alarm sounded. Monsters were attacking the mountain tribe. They immediately lured the beast into the arena. Zero's first opponent in the arena was the monster they had drawn out. Famran stepped up to face it. However, with just one slash, his sword broke in half, forcing him to surrender. Then, the mountain warrior, who was physically strong, was able to hold out at first. But then, the monster suddenly appeared, with glowing red eyes, and sent him flying out of the arena. Realizing the dire situation, Zero and Baben quickly joined the battle. Baben lunges to attack, but is pushed back by the monster out of the arena, forcing Zero to take Megan's attack. Megan calls on Baben to destroy the arena. He delivers a powerful blow, cracking the floor, causing the monster to lose balance and flip over. Zero quickly jumps up and stabs the monster in the eye, while Baben lunges to attack its tail, preventing it from counterattacking. Finally, the monster is defeated by morning. The mountain man, for his bravery in battle, is honored with a noble title. Meanwhile, two suspicious figures on the mountain prepare 5 more monsters to release into the village, but Zen suddenly appears and takes them all down. A white-haired man quickly blocks Zen's attack, while a woman behind him uses dark energy to repel her opponent. She plans to merge with him, but the white-haired man says it is unnecessary. Then he charges into battle, blocking Jen's attack. But Jen quickly breaks free and retrieves his weapon. He asks Jen if he was sent here under Megami's orders, but Zen remains completely silent. The white-haired man keeps pressing forward, carefully avoiding any openings, swiftly delivering a slash that splits Jen's body in two. However, what he cut was merely an afterimage, as the real Jen was behind him. Jen refuses to lose, unleashing an energy slash that causes rocks to fall on him. The white-haired man is still alive, but Jen then flees. Not long after, Megami also meets with the old noble. The noble asks about the progress of their plan. Megami informs him that someone has been interfering, but the noble does not want to deal with them just yet. Instead, he wants to toy with Soroji a little longer. He asserts that Soroji only suspects his plan for now, so he intends to drop more clues until she is convinced that he is behind the recent monster rebellion. Only then will he officially begin his true plan. He also inquires about the commotion in town earlier. Megami dismisses it as unimportant, since the experiment cannot survive long. Outside the research facility, the noble emphasizes the need to clarify the hierarchy between rulers and their servants. Megami clearly understands this is a warning, but he remains silent and departs. In the stillness of night, he unexpectedly encounters Zero training under the moonlight, curious and eager to learn. He quickly approaches and joins Zero. Proud of his spear skills, he thinks he isn't capable of teaching a swordsman like Bella. But noticing that Megan's sword swings are incorrect, he patiently stops and carefully guides him through each move. The two train until morning, until Batla's wife called them for breakfast. After a hearty breakfast, Batla's wife invited the Zero group to stay. She told them some interesting stories about their journey, because they were rare guests to this place. During the conversation, both sides quickly realized that the recent appearance of monsters was not only increasing in number, but also becoming much stronger. Even more concerning were the red-eyed monsters. Not only in this place, but in many other villages, people had also faced them. However, Batla confidently stated that his mountain tribe was very strong and had no fear of the red-eyed beasts. Back on the ship, Kumi was overwhelmed with guilt, thinking that she was the reason the red-eyed monsters appeared, because every time she released Black Aura, monsters would swarm in and unexpectedly transform into red-eyed creatures. Zero pondered, thinking that since the beginning of their journey, Kumi had only lost control once at the harbor. So surely the continuous waves of red-eyed monsters must have another cause. Zero then went to meet Bedolan and expressed his desire to investigate the red-eyed monsters. Bug gave him directions to the quarry on the mountain, where there is a wide field of view, to observe the direction from which the monsters appear. He also gave Zero a special material that his wife had mined, which was used to operate airships. Zero carefully placed it into the test engine and told Mia to start the engine. Sure enough, this fuel allowed the airship to soar high, even though its duration lasted only one night. So Zero had to make the most of it. The group then set off for the quarry on the ship's roof. Marin quickly discovered that the quarry was being attacked by a ferocious beast. Zero assigned Megan the task of gathering the mountain tribe to defend the quarry, while he and Kumi climbed to the mountain peak to observe the situation. Mia gave Megan a new sword and reminded him to be careful with the new technique he had learned from Zero. Megan charged into battle with the beast and even managed to sever one of its legs. But when the beast's eyes turned a fiery red, Megan was forced to retreat into the mine, along with the mountain tribe, to wait for Bai Teben to handle it. Meanwhile, Zero and Kumi were brought closer to the mountain peak. Zero sensed a divine presence at the peak and suspected that these figures were related to the red-eyed monsters. He decided to meet the two people at the peak and was shocked to see a white-haired man, his old comrade, Focus. Strangely, Focus seemed to have forgotten both his name and Zero's, and allowed Zero to leave, but Zero refused, drawing his weapon and declaring himself a warrior of the gods. Immediately, Focus lunged to attack. Zero was pushed back, forcing him to merge with Yumi to counterattack. Although Focus did not combine his strength with Yumi, he was still equally matched with Zero. When Zero and Yumi merged, they were blown to opposite sides of the battlefield. Meanwhile, Kuro faced off against Focus's partner. Suddenly realized that the opponent looked just like her. Zero realized that both of them were clones, subjects of an experiment created by the research facility. Meanwhile, Kumi, in black attire, declared that she was different from the white-clad Kumi, and even intended to take extreme measures, activating a curse to prove her point. Baban had to charge in to stop her, giving Zero a chance to retreat. Bia piloted the ship to pick up Zero, and in the end, he had no choice but to take Kumi and withdraw, leaving Baban and the mountain tribe to handle the rest. Later, the group witnessed a scene where the elder women of the mountain tribe were performing a special ritual. Everyone was also searching for the engagement ring that Kumi once owned. Meanwhile, Baban and the mountain tribe were defeated by Focus. Even though Focus had not yet fully merged, Zero kept wondering why Focus had turned into a human, like what he had seen before, while Kumi remained in shock after seeing her clone, reminding her of the horrors the research facility had inflicted on her, that the research facility had done to her. Later, Melon asked Rona about the reason why someone who looked exactly like Yumi appeared, but Rona was also unsure. The only thing she was certain about was that Zero was facing some problem. Suddenly, the entire ship was struck by lightning and plunged straight down into the forest amidst the chaos. Vozen reported to Soroji that he had encountered Focus. Soroji knew that he had only gathered information on the old noble, but still had nothing on Mizami, so she ordered her partner to arrange a meeting with the king. Meanwhile, Zero tried to repair the ship, but it seemed they had to wait until morning to find a solution, as the wind was blowing too strongly. Suddenly, Zero felt a flower petal touch his face, which made him rush off to look for something. He noticed a strange purple flower and warned the group to be cautious, as more monsters might appear. The next morning, Mia and Megan worked together to repair the ship to get it running again, and the group continued their journey. After a while on the road, they were approaching the territory of the forest people. The group noticed that Zero seemed unhappy. His eyes were melancholic, and he remained mysteriously silent. They asked him if he had caused any trouble with the forest people, and if so, now was the time to confess. But Zero insisted that nothing had happened, even though his actions suggested otherwise. Ronald, with his sharp intuition, guessed that Zero's reaction had something to do with a woman. But Zero ignored the remark and told Mia to speed up. When the ship docked, Mia met another person named Mia, a different chicken hat wearer, and asked for permission to stay to rest and chat for a while. Not long after, the tribal chief appeared and met the group. He asked Zero whether he had broken the curse yet. Zero suddenly bowed and called him father, filling the atmosphere with emotions. The group then joined the chief in a sacred ritual. When the ritual ended, Zero left, and the group curiously asked the chief about him. He revealed that Zero was actually his son-in-law, husband to his daughter, who had passed away 5 years ago. The reason Zero was so late, he believed, was entirely due to the curse. Mia had heard of this curse before, and explained that the curse was only for warriors like Zero, in order to become a vessel for one who bears the new god's power. He had to forget all memories of the predecessor. The fact that Zero still remembered his late wife showed that he had not fully accepted becoming a vessel for Kiyumi. The chief then instructed Kiyumi to find Zero at his daughter's grave. Perhaps his worries and doubts could be eased through this. Indeed, Zero was at his late wife's grave, and in a moment of deep thought, he recalled 8 years ago, when he was just starting as a hunter. One day, he unexpectedly met Zuka, the one whom fate had destined to be his wife. Zuka helped Zero with a well-aimed dagger throw, creating an opening for him to finish off a beastly foe. From then on, the two became inseparable. Zuka even used her drawings to show Zero his own weaknesses, helping him improve every day. Because of that, Zero decided to invite Zuka along, and every time he fought, he asked Zuka to draw so he could see his own flaws and correct them. Not long after, Yumi arrived and asked to meet Zuka. Meanwhile, Soroji went to the king to report on the old nobleman and Mizami's scheme, a plot that could incite the tribes against the empire. The king immediately ordered the council to leave and activated a magical formation. He commanded Soroji to forget the nobleman and to find the ring and bring it here. Soroji realized that the king was ordering her to hunt down Zero's group. But the magical formation forced her to obey the command without resistance. Meanwhile, Zero told Kiyomi about the time he and Zuka traveled across the lands. He had already met the tribal chief and asked for permission to take Zuka with him. They ventured through many roads, encountering various monsters, and recorded countless memories through vivid paintings. Over time, Zero gradually earned recognition from the Empire and was granted a special fruit, which enhanced a warrior's power. However, he refused to take it, because accepting it, which meant being bound to the Empire, forcing him to constantly participate in battles that he never wanted. Until one day, Zero was forced to join Soroji and focus on a joint mission. At that time, Soroji was eager for promotion, hoping that, with power, she could end this meaningless war and enjoy a peaceful life in the countryside. Ironically, even though Soroji had partially achieved that, she still couldn't fulfill the promise she made to the group, and was eventually summoned back by headquarters, leaving only Focus with Zero and his wife, and those who stayed behind had to endure the nightmare of a monster attack. Those monsters were actually giants capable of speech, who rendered the whole group unconscious. In that chaotic moment, Zuka was forced to sacrifice herself to protect Zero and the others, even though she had only managed to take down small beasts. Then the commander of the giants appeared, and for some unknown reason, Zero survived the terrifying battle. Now, Zero decided to use the life Tuka had saved to help Yumi. Yumi was also able to resolve the conflicts in her heart and realized what she truly wanted, which was to save the other CAO copies like herself. At that moment, Zero's descendants suddenly sensed the presence of approaching monsters. Focus and Kiyomi Black led a horde of beasts to the village of the Horn tribe to capture Zero. Meanwhile, Mizami received a notice that if Focus came into contact with Zero and regained his memories, then the CAO copies of Focus would activate, and if that happened, he would be executed immediately. He had also created multiple CAO copies of Kiyomi Black and ordered them to be sent to designated locations. Not long after, the entire village had to face the monstrous beasts, while Zero and Yumi confronted Focus and Kiyomi Black. Kiyomi Black asserted that she did not need Yumi's help, but Yumi was determined to save Kiyomi Black at all costs. We were then taken back to an earlier time, when Megami first started working with that nobleman on experiments. There, Megami created numerous test subjects, all with the shared goal of creating a vessel capable of unleashing black energy without being killed by that very power. Through all these events, the story continued with sacrifices and schemes, and the decisions of each character. Every step, every sacrifice was tied to a curse, memories that could not fade, and the fate of a warrior, a vessel of divine power. And in this arduous journey, each character, from Zero and Ronald to Yumi and Tuka, Focus, and the various tribes, all had to face their pasts, their curses, and the fate they could not escape. The research was not just about implanting monster cells into human bodies, but also about expanding into cell transplantation, creating hybrid experimental subjects, of which Focus was one. Many more experiments were conducted, and when Kumi, also known as Number 22, appeared, everything began to change. Every day, Yumi was constantly injected with drugs and forced to repeatedly recite a specific command to activate the power within her. Despite suffering severe effects, she survived each experiment, until one day, when Mizumi discovered a way to trigger an outburst of black energy, a phenomenon triggered by a threat to the subject's life. Immediately after, Mizumi ordered for her to be taken to the fortress at the previous port town for imprisonment. A kind-hearted staff member tried to save her. At the same time, they told her that death was not salvation, as Megami had planted in her mind. However, that staff member was quickly discovered by Megami and executed, while Kumi was recaptured and imprisoned. Over time, Kumi gradually realized the meaning behind what that staff member had told her, that she had to try to escape. And so, just like what happened at the beginning of the story, she managed to escape on her own, while hoping to pass on the insights she had gained to her CAO copies. However, Kumi was quite stubborn by nature and refused to change easily, to the point that Zero had to merge with her to fight together. He quickly engaged in battle with Focus. Meanwhile, Kumi noticed that Focus had a strange scent, one that closely resembled a monster's. Amidst the chaos, an old nobleman approached the king and declared that he was planning to create autonomous warriors who did not require any allies. These warriors could replace the current army to conquer the territories of other demi-human tribes and force them to submit to the king. However, the king was concerned that the nobleman's experiments might fail and cause the demi-human tribes to unite and attack the empire. But the nobleman remained confident that there was no need to worry. Meanwhile, the tribal chief happened to meet Jen and informed him that Zero had started showing positive changes. At the same time, Zero discussed with Kiyumi and Yumi, hoping to lure Kumi Black to the cliff over there to persuade her with words, while Zero was reminded to stall for time against Focus. After that, Zero and Kumi parted ways. Kumi quickly clung to a dog to escape, while Zero continued battling Focus. When Zen realized that Zero and Kumi had split up, he immediately divided his team to support both. Zero was trying to resist Focus, managing to strike at his afterimage, but since he had already predicted Focus's attack pattern, he quickly aimed his spear backward. Ren appeared just in time, using his power to completely restrain Focus. At the same time, Kumi was trying her best to reach Kemi and showed her some of her own memories, hoping that through them she would awaken and realize the truth. After seeing the memories, Kumi Black truly awakened as she had hoped. But just as she was rushing back to inform everyone, Kumi Black was suddenly triggered by Miyami's hidden mechanism and began to show signs of an explosion. She tried to suppress the explosion, but soon realized that the mechanism was too strong, and she could no longer stop it herself. Amidst the chaos, Focus took the opportunity to escape, while Kumi used all her strength to contain the explosion. But the effects of the explosion on Kumi Black were irreversible, and in the end, she had to depart. Kumi was heartbroken, feeling like she still couldn't save her dear friend. In the following days, Zero stayed by Kumi's side to take care of her. Not long after, Yumi woke up and met Ronan. She mentioned that she had just switched places so that Zero could rest and that everyone was safe. So Kumi did not need to worry too much. After giving Kumi medicine and letting her rest, Ronan recalled 3 years ago when she was a medic on the battlefield. Back then, she had witnessed countless injuries and deaths, including a warrior and his partner. The warrior coldly asked Ronan to check and treat him, without caring how badly his partner was injured, as if she were replaceable. The young partner silently endured, without resistance. Later, when the battle settled, Ronan found the young girl's lifeless body on the battlefield. She had been abandoned like a tool and left to die. Meanwhile, the warrior had disappeared. From that moment, she began to despise warriors, but gradually realized that she could trust Zero and Kumi. Later, Kumi woke up and awakened Zero. He decided to bring something for Kumi, but could only offer plain rice, as Ronald had yet to get any food for her. At that moment, Milan asked about the research facility from which Kumi had escaped. Although hesitant, Zero also believed that it was time for Kumi to reveal everything. Kumi told the group that She had been held in a confined area and would be killed if she tried to escape. But if she didn't escape, she had to fight for survival every day against NCA copy identical to herself. According to what Zero had heard, the Empire was trying to create artificial partners and find a way to make them lose control under their command. Thus, the test subjects had been brainwashed and taught that death was salvation. By doing so, the Empire could create human bombs capable of wiping out entire towns without using any military forces. A human bomb that feared no death shook the air in the research facility. With a heart full of longing, she desperately wanted to save the CAO copies, like herself, who were still imprisoned there. Though the pain remained deep, as she couldn't save a single one. Vin Kinro, instead of blaming Yumi for escaping, swore that from now on, he would never run away again, but would dedicate himself to helping Yumi rescue her friends. Shortly after the tribal chief appeared, he couldn't let Yumi roam freely, believing she was too dangerous, and ordered the group to leave immediately. Amidst the chaos, the masked Mias had gathered. It was quickly realized that Mia with the cat mask and Mia with the dog mask had swapped places from the beginning as part of a plot, a secret involving the ring, and someone Mia referred to as Master. Meanwhile, Ronald had anticipated that their group would be captured right after Yumi Black's explosio and had helped them escape. However, the tribal chief blocked the way, not allowing anyone like Kumi, whom he deemed dangerous, to leave. At that moment, Jen suddenly appeared and declared that he would deal with both sides before going after Miami to bury this inhumane research into the shadows. Eliminating the Horn tribe and Zero's group was seen as a way to ensure that no witnesses remained. Yumi began to panic, and in that moment, black energy rose around her, reflecting her inner fear. But Rona firmly stepped in to block Jen, declaring that they would not allow war to break out between the tribes and the Empire. She challenged that if the chief killed them here, Mia would reveal everything to the entire world, making it impossible for their group to return safely. The chief also realized that Mia was not present when everything unfolded, forcing Jen to accept and allow Zero's group to go in peace. Afterward, the chief, Jen, and Zero's group gathered to discuss their plot. Although the chief agreed to let them leave, he was still worried that the village might not accept Zero's presence. If he explained, because of his ties to both sides, the chief pledged to intervene to prevent other tribes from interfering. Once everything was settled, finally, the group decided to set off the next day. Jen let out a soft chuckle, as if he had suspected that Rona had planned everything from the very beginning. The next morning, Mia piloted the ship back to pick up Zero's group. The chief directed the group westward, toward the Empire's territory. Meanwhile, Soroji traveled to the home of the Forest tribe to carry out her own missio. As for Yumi, with a familiar yet melancholic feeling, she realized that she was returning to the place she had once escaped from. The group then stepped forward and informed her that they had prepared a special gift. The whole group came up with a new nickname for her. She would no longer be called Number 22. From now on, she would be called Yumi. She beamed with a bright smile. She hesitated for a moment, then rushed to hug Zero, because she truly loved her new nickname. Meanwhile, the old nobleman began calculating that Megami would soon betray him. But he had a backup plan in place. Oh, he just waited to see who would act first. Would it be him or Mizami? Zero's group had found the research facility, but they were sure they didn't have enough time to persuade all the clones. So they decided for now to lead all the clones outside and sedate them. Persuasion would come later. Zero then boldly entered through the main door, triggering alarms everywhere. Mizami was pleased that Yumi had returned and planned to send a clone into battle by injecting it with a stimulant to induce rage. But Focus intervened. Because he wanted to face Zero himself, Mizami reluctantly agreed. As long as Focus handled things quickly, Mizami realized that Focus was soon to be disposed of. At the same time, Zero wiped out the soldiers in a single blow, and the captains surrendered voluntarily since they weren't paid enough to risk their lives. As soon as he stepped inside, Zero encountered Focus again. Zero tried to awaken Focus's memories, but he barely listened. Then Focus created afterimages to deceive Zero. But Yumi quickly pointed out his exact location. Zero shattered a stone piece on Focus's chest, causing Focus to recall old memories before he silently walked away. Zero's group regrouped, and Focus confronted Mizami to reclaim his memories. But Migami decided it was time to discard Focus. Suddenly, Focus appeared with glowing red eyes and strangled him to death. Zero's group then advanced to the clone detention area, but most of them had been moved. Only one clone was left waiting for them. Zero quickly charged in and knocked it out, and had Rona restrain it for extraction. Once everything was secure, the group pressed deeper inside and reached a room full of clones. Zero couldn't handle them all. Then suddenly, the room received a command upload, causing all the clones to fall unconscious. Zero assigned the task to the other three, while he and Yumi ventured deeper. They then reached a hidden chamber, where Mizami awaited. Alongside the monster Zero had faced 5 years ago, Mizami declared that now he no longer needed Focus or the clones. What he needed now was Yumi, because she had evolved to control her power at will. Meanwhile, Focus was not entirely dead and had restored the stone on his chest to continue fighting. In that fateful moment, Mizami arrogantly claimed that he was second only to the gods, considering humans and all other creatures as nothing more than lowly insects. His eyes suddenly changed, turning a brilliant red, and within moments, a third eye grew on his forehead. His body grotesquely transformed, gradually morphing into a monstrous entity, identical to the giant beast lurking in the shadows. Meanwhile, Ronald's group had finished dealing with the clones of Kumi and decided to leave the remaining task to Zero. Not long after, Zero was ruthlessly beaten by the point where he couldn't even lift his head. Then he yanked Kumi out of Zero's body, forcing her to follow him, with the promise that he would spare Zero if she obeyed. The more he taunted and mocked the nickname the group had given Yumi, the more her anger exploded. In just an instant, Yumi's rage ignited like a blazing fire, surging to an unimaginable level. She unexpectedly summoned the power within her, controlling the giant monster behind her. With a sudden and fierce counterattack, the monster reached out and grabbed Migami, mercilessly swallowing him whole. The sudden turn of events caused Yumi to faint, forcing Zero to quickly drag her out of the collapsing research facility. Just as they escaped the crumbling building, the group was caught off guard when Suoji appeared alongside Theo, the chieftain of the forest tribe. Zero announced that Mizami was dead and asked the chieftain, "What should we do now?" After careful consideration, the chieftain stated there were 2 possible solutions. Eliminate Yumi to completely bury this experiment in darkness, or seal away Yumi's power and grant her a new identity so she could live a normal life. However, the chieftain also emphasized that the moment of judgment was approaching. The forest tribe believed that when the world reached a certain threshold, the gods would descend to pass judgment, and the appearance of beasts with red eyes was a sign indicating that they were the gods' vanguard. Not long after, Yumi, who had just endured a severe ordeal, suddenly collapsed again. After examining her, Soroji had to call Zero aside to talk. She whispered to Zero, revealing that Yumi's lifespan was very short, because Megami had forced her to bear an overwhelming power within her body. Yumi once hoped that the sealing ritual would prolong her life. But fate was cruel, as her remaining time seemed to be at most a year. This news pained Zero deeply. He wondered how he would face Yumi in the journey ahead. The next morning, Yumi approached Zero. She sensed something was wrong. From the way he acted, his quiet awkwardness, as if hiding a secret. With her sharp mind and cleverness, Yumi pretended she already knew everything, forcing Zero into a corner, leaving him no choice but to admit that she didn't have much time left. Yet Yumi didn't show despair or sadness. She remembered how she had almost died in the ruined research facility, but thanks to meeting Zero, she had a chance to live a joyful life, filled with friendship and new hope. The group then set out to the forest tribe's home. Upon arrival, Zero realized that each tribe indeed had a unique mirror, a distinctive mark that couldn't be missing. They quickly met the chieftain again, who stated that it had been 200 years since the forest tribe last had an outsider visitor. This place was eerily peaceful, almost never attacked by monsters. The chieftain prepared for the group a cozy room, and at that moment, Zero suddenly noticed that Yumi's ring was missing. Yumi explained that Suoji had taken it to show the chieftain for examination. And according to him, this was a sign that the moment of judgment was near. Before they could recover, the group was surprised to find that inside the settlement, a lively festival was taking place. Yumi, with her ever-free spirit, wanted to go out and join the festivities. After Rona checked her health and confirmed that Yumi was still strong enough, Zero gently took her to participate in the festival, so Yumi could laugh and play with the children. Meanwhile, Rona reminded Zero that, according to the tribe, 1 year for Yumi could be as long as 15 for him. But because of Yumi, he had once again found joy in life. Not long after, Yumi ran back to Zero, but suddenly she didn't seem well. Zero hurriedly took her to rest. That night, when Yumi woke up, she heard that Zero had gone somewhere with Suoji. Meanwhile, Megan had gone out to find Zero and Mia. At the same time, Rona took Yumi to meet the chief to discuss matters related to the sealing ritual. After that, the chief led Rona and Yumi down to a secret underground chamber, where he shared that, due to the long lifespan of the forest tribe, their birth rate was naturally very low. So to compensate for that, the chief created incubation chambers to clone individuals, but unfortunately, these were stolen by Megami for dark purposes. However, the chief still considered Yumi a valuable member of the tribe, because she was also born there, feeling the warmth of her new family. Yumi beamed with happiness. Meanwhile, Suoji gave Zero a remote communication device, as a precaution in case something went wrong. The next day, the forest tribe gathered to welcome Yumi. As an official member of the tribe, no one objected, so the sealing ritual was carried out immediately. The chief instructed Yumi to touch the metal block, which had the ability to absorb all the power from her body, and asked her not to let go until the power was completely gone. Yumi obeyed, and immediately a cold, dark aura began to spread around her. Within moments, many red-eyed beasts rushed into attack. The home of the forest tribe, Zero quickly received an urgent message from Soroji and rushed into battle to protect everyone while assisting in the fight. Yumi wanted to help Zero, but both the chief and Rona agreed that she must continue the sealing ritual because everyone wished for her to live longer. Kiyumi no longer wanted to continue living, especially after witnessing everyone around her lose their lives, overcome with pain and despair. She decided to stand up and help Zero, even if it meant giving up her life, which was already exhausting. Runa respected Kiyumi's decision, allowing her to stop the ritual if she wished, without any force or interference. After that, Kiyumi rushed off to find Zero, while thanking everyone who had helped her through her most difficult times. Meanwhile, Mia had regrouped with the other Mias, and only then did they realize that Mia was actually sent by the gods with the mission to prepare for the Judgment Day. When the gods began to awaken, Mia would be responsible for completing the final step of the plan. Zen also appeared, though he felt it was too late to change the course of fate. Zero then reunited with Yumi. The two of them were forced to hide in a corner, trying to stabilize the chaotic situation. Zero couldn't understand why Yumi abandoned the ritual, but she firmly stated that she couldn't leave everyone in danger. Their argument grew intense, until Zero finally had to accept Yumi's decision. Suddenly, the group unexpectedly encountered Focus, who had lost his mind and mistook Zero for Miyami, the one he sought revenge against. In the chaos, Zero quickly grabbed Kiyumi's hand to merge their powers and fight against their enemies together. At the same time, the tribes were fiercely fighting against the monsters, as red-eyed beasts kept appearing everywhere. In the turmoil, Meiden suddenly encountered Kiyumi's aunt. She anxiously asked Megan about Kiyumi's condition, but from Meiden's hesitant expression, she realized that Kiyumi was not doing well at all. At that moment, Soroji noticed the situation stabilizing, but she still felt that the Judgment Day was not over yet. Just then, from outside, came the roar of a giant monster, continuously spawning more red-eyed beasts, even though other areas were under attack. Only this region saw the emergence of the giant monster. Soroji immediately called Cho Zero, asking him to eliminate the giant, but he was still trapped by Focus. Focus instantly used high-speed movement, creating confusing afterimages, but unfortunately, he was attacked by a monster, which made him furious, and he lunged at it, stabbing one of its eyes. Even though the monster didn't fall, Zero had to rush in to finish it off, but in the process, he was ambushed by Focus and lost consciousness. Luckily, Zen appeared and decided to give Focus the memories he had been craving as a way to restore the loss in his soul. Amidst the chaos, the old lady also appeared to meet Yumi, asking about her health. Soon after, she woke up Zero and gave him and Yumi a fruit that restores energy, helping them regain their strength. A monster suddenly appeared, but the old lady quickly unleashed a move, blowing the monster away like the wind. After that, she asked Zero and Kumi to leave this place together to deal with the giant, leaving her and old G to handle the rest of the situation. Meanwhile, Ronald was working in the medical unit, advised by the doctors to rest, as she looked exhausted. But she refused to give up while everyone was still fighting. Petero hurried to help evacuate the children, while also searching for Mia at the same time. Jen had broken one of Focus's blades, though his own sword cracked on both sides. After that, Ren struck a powerful blow, breaking his sword first, but Focus quickly stabbed him in the back. Out giving eye, Ren used his broken blade to stab Focus in the chest and pushed him into the abyss, even though he knew Focus might not die. At least he hoped that. He would create new memories. Meteran then searched for Soroji to ask about Mia. But Soroji also didn't know where Mia was, since monsters had spread everywhere. Thus, Soroji asked Melon to bring the ring to Kumi, while Kumi merged with her partner to charge into battle against the endless monsters as the tribes began to struggle against the horde. To the Beastman's village and the forest tribe. Zero, despite constantly slaying monsters along the way, worried that Kumi might not hold out until he could defeat the giant. Luckily, Megan arrived piloting a ship with Mia, and Zero noticed that Kumi was running out of strength, so he decided to charge forward to destroy the monster. He leaped onto a snake and lunged at the giant's eye. Even though he hit it, the eye was not destroyed. Instead, it created more eyes. Zero was exhausted, while Kumi prepared to activate the curse to wipe everything out. But Zero quickly stopped her. At that moment, Marin and Mia flew high. Megan took control of the ship for a moment, and she teleported to Zero and Kumi, taking both into another space. In that space, Mia transformed into a larger version of herself, realizing that to defeat the enemy, Zero needed to unlock the true power of the ring. She handed the ring back to Kumi and asked her to pour all of her emotions into it to unleash its ultimate power. Mia then returned Zero to the real world, while Kumi transformed into a goddess form, holding a sacred ring, and that ring unleashed devastating strikes upon all the monsters across a vast area. However, the giant still stood strong and began to counterattack. But Yumi, with her exceptional defensive skills, gathered all her strength into one move, squeezing the giant to its absolute limit until it exploded and was completely destroyed. As a result, the monsters across the empire suddenly stopped moving. Kumi returned to her normal state as before, but Zero suddenly separated from Kumi's body, as if he had his own plan to carry out first. He quickly climbed up and rushed to meet everyone again, and he was still very shocked when he witnessed Mia suddenly transform into a mature older sister with an unexpectedly confident and mature appearance. But just when everything seemed to be over, suddenly, something similar to a ship appeared in the sky, as a clear sign that the moment of true judgment had arrived. And this is where the movie ends. Currently, there is no sequel yet, so we still don't know how the next battle will unfold. But for now, we must say goodbye to everyone here.